Well, hello people, and welcome back to part 6 of Kokomo State. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Over the last 5 episodes, we've completely built out our first tile, giving us a real mix sprawl of low-density homes, medium-density town centre, and several different industrial areas alongside waterfront builds as well. A really satisfying first tile to put together, thoroughly enjoyed this. And today we'll be opening the city's first new tiles, indeed to build rail yard infrastructure. One of the things I love most about CS2 compared to the first game is that you have to prep the transit infrastructure itself with bus, train and metro depots to make sure you have the volume of vehicles needed available to service the transit networks that we will eventually be planning. But we can carry on moving down here to frame the highway in a nice big space to the current east of Sartosa. But welcome back to Kokomo, everyone. I like trains. So just before we get started, again, Main Street Saratosa continues to be a traffic jam, but it keeps changing locations. Sometimes it's down here, and then other times it's down here by the exit interchange. But I just noticed this huge crowd of people. We're actually blocking the pedestrian crossing here. So I think today we'll get some, well, I think if anything, this is an example that walkability back into across the highway networks that will cut through most of the city is going to be quite an important theme, isn't it? So, something to bear in mind there. We'll bring in some walkability across the highway today. For which we'll start by opening up the city's first tiles. So I'd also like to expand the grids. I'm going to want these 3, and then possibly these 2 as well, giving us 5 tiles, which is quite expensive, but keeps us in the green at least. Now let's clean up a lot of these trees here. Now the rail yard itself, I just want to actually check the size, because I think I'm going to use the vanilla one, which gives us 10 trains. Because it's the chunkiest. Now we're taking inspiration from Tampa's rail yard today, which is an absolute beast of a facility over in Florida. And I think we're going to go at an angle here. I'd like to save some room for my own detailing. So I think something like that, just about there. Now I'm going to turn this off for most of today's episode, if not into next episode. Because of course, we have nowhere to actually send the trains yet. Train stations don't exist in the city. So it's always going to come out a little bit, and then it's going to curve. And then we'll just bring in a little curve tool here with the road guideline. And then connect that in. In terms of where this is going to go again, it's kind of heading toward an interchange here. Now, I would like it to have some crossing up to this road over here. So now the highway is embanked down this way. Let me just test something here. So let's try this. Let's grab one of the lowest nodes here. And then if I set you to be the same height as this one, how much of a difference is that? Also set the same one to the same height as well. And then we'll use our road tools. So of course, only certain segments. I don't want this highway to be bridge all the way along. I think a lot of the time it's going to spend embanked. But where I want my mark grid frames to start passing under, the wonderful world of Anarchy and move it a height tool will allow me to do that no problem. But another key theme of the build throughout the whole of Kokomo is going to be the ability to get back into across this highway without having to deal with an interchange. So this road here, so just using Anarchy to build outside of current tile boundaries. I'm going to bring that straight down and then just hook it 180 degrees into there. Now I do have some ideas for other detailing today, so I'm not going to fill it out totally with road frame, just until we can get in here. Sweet. New grid orientations combining here, because obviously it's not perfectly aligned from every road in Saratosa to make sure we have perfect whole grids, but not a lot of this is going to be zoned here today. So let's get our train yard hooked in. So we'll come out with the double track first, and I'm going to go with Anarchy off for this, just to make sure I'm not forcing the road tools into doing anything that they're not comfortable with. And then I think I'll merge this from the level crossing. I am not versed in train police legislation, so I might do something that upsets them today, but I'll try my hardest not to. So this way trains can depart off the main intercity line, which is a current train arriving right now. It's going to Wally. Yeah, which will allow me to add a bit more importance to this intersection. Which actually, then again, this is a really important arterial road. Do I even want this as level crossing? It's a very possible idea I don't, actually. Again, just to give an idea here, I want to grab the node of this train line and then set it to the same height as one of these recessed nodes. How much does that push us down by? Probably not quite enough. I'm going to sink it down like that, I think. And then the same for all these little local train nodes here. I think I'm going to say to this one, no, you're actually not a level crossing. Instead, you'll be a bridge. This way we can completely avoid the need for level crossings, which I know will please the train police, because they're generally quite frowned upon, aren't they? And then with anarchy, we'll just bring that back in. And then we'll fix a lot of this in our detailing, but at least now it's providing connection. And then with the rest of our train lines, we'll blend these in, just so they fit with the current ladder system here. Sweet, so that hooks us all in. And then I want to have lots of single track lanes running parallel with the actual building itself, so I can do some of my own train yard detailing. I'm just going to draw it down here to make sure that it's all 90 degrees from the building. Everyone's happy and aligned. We could connect in there, but trains might end up using it as a shortcut, which I'm not sure I'm happy about. Maybe I won't leave it connected there, actually. Maybe let's bring in some more sort of really nice parallel rail action. Again, the train yard we're taking inspiration from in Tampa today is absolutely enormous. And then I'll hook it into these ladder systems that are actually going into the train yard itself, I think. Wonderful. So significantly expanding the size of the asset. I think I'm going to be pretty happy with that. Of course, loads of goated surface paint is going to be really nice here. So I'll walk you through how I'm going to paint it. We'll do Mountain Brush 4 with lots of dry grass, right? There's no life or flowers left in this yard. It's dirt, it's sand, it's dust, train grease, if such a thing exists. And then dirt all the way through. Not as heavy as the dry grass. And then with sand on a much less intensity. And just the occasional splash through, right? Now in terms of what's going to happen with these roads, I think I'm just going to box them off and we'll just have some houses facing onto the rail before the rest of suburbia continues. Where we'll also approach our first lake, which is probably going to be some sort of suburban park area. But there is a few lakes dotted across the map that we can play with over time. This one right on the edge. But we're a long way from being over here, of course. But this, for me in the Mar grid, how much of a impressive bit of infrastructure is that? It's almost in line with the track and field stadium here, isn't it? This like immediately identifiable bit of infrastructure, for which the rail yard in Tampa really functions as. I'm sure Editing Egg will be leaving us some pictures of that bit of infrastructure in particular. I'm also very keen to start tying together some of the aesthetics, so let's bring in some chain link fencing here, which the asset is already blessed with, so we'll bring it down from here. And yeah, I guess I'm just going to bring it straight down this way. I'm not going to let the road dictate how deep the rail yard goes, so that will go in favour of the new rail yard boundary. Let's bring it off at an angle, and then straight down to the bridge, where that can sort of encompass this facility here, right? Again, mentioned it before, I really love that we actually have to prep this infrastructure in cities too. An excuse and a reason as to where the eventual hundreds of trains, I imagine, moving around all emanate from. And this won't be the only one in the city either, you know, eventually we're going to need another one. And we could also have a look at upgrades while we're here, but again, I don't think there's a necessary need just yet, as there's no need to pay for train maintenance faster when no trains are being maintained. But I'm happy with this here. In terms of where the arterial is going to go, possibly over here. I guess maybe in some sort of elevated fashion if we dare to start playing with that. Let's come on to keys left and right side of the road as this begins to take on a new trajectory. We'll go for a 10-meter bridge in that general direction, I think. That's going to go over there. Eventually, probably swinging around to link in with the frames that begin to emanate kind of left to right here. As to where I'm thinking what's going to happen. Because we've already got quite a few arterial systems prepped into these tiles, so I don't think there's a need to take this one, this general kind of northwesterly direction at the same time. And as it arrives at the rail, we're going to force elevated. Not too much. Again, I don't want loads of massive bridges knocking about, even though that is a pretty key theme of Florida, to be fair. And then back down to 0. 128 meters, and then that can just be regular road to go somewhere at some point, but that is very much Future X problem. So just to return to the road network over here in the corner of the grid, I want to keep this highway in, but it's going to slow down to just regular road rather than high-speed highway. And this will continue to be major mark grid frame heading, I guess, south out of Saratoga here. And I'm going to downgrade this highway into just normal road. And coming at 180 degrees there. We'll also connect this one in as well. It's okay. I'll always adjust that once that tile boundary opens, but at least they can make the connection. And then this road is going to form new major frame, which I think I might actually supernode this. Again, looking at the configurations around Tampa, there's a lot of very elaborate rail crossings and stuff. So I'd like to factor some of them in as the train infrastructure expands as the city grows. And I think to supernode this, again, because of what I can see in Tampa, there's like a little couplet system running here with more supernodes along it serving industry that backs onto the rail. Well, that's my idea. So I'm going to get a parallel road here, just the 2-lane one-way. And bring this out on a 90-degree angle and just reinforce that. You see, I'm making sure the snap point is in line with these north to south roads when I'm making this, not this one here. Then I'm going to have this come all the way through the frame, basically, until it'll meet with another system at some point in time, possibly the arterial road again, right? It'll hook up with there. To keep that running, it's also going to carry on that way as well. Just to think out loud about the road frame again, that's going to come this way before it eventually curves off. Probably form a bridge further down the river from these bridges here. And then supernode it, we'll just delete the roundabout in the middle. Now, how does node controller respond to supernodes? Oh, very well indeed. Isn't that cool? Isn't that amazing? Just so exciting, that, isn't it? I don't want to go too big here. I'm assuming eventually at certain stretches supernodes become quite unstable, so we'll keep it within reason, but that's just enormous, isn't it? I really like that. There's the intercity bus, using that little lane there as well. So supernode possibilities with node controller included in the city are going to be rather fabulous. So I'd like a super thick forest to kind of bound the train yard. So let's go for Anarchy off again. Straight up against the train boundary here. I'll keep it on quite a high percentage as well. Quite thick. And then we'll start marking out the spots for each of these new industrial sites, which will be made up of pretty much generic industry, just satisfying our general production demand. Which we will take a quick glance at. There's no raw resources being produced yet, so this will all be a massive import deficit. But we're making some metals. Some of it's also being imported as well, though. Making some really good steel. Which we're also exporting nearly half of that as well. Yeah, concrete is an enormous import surplus. We'll be spending a fortune on that, I imagine. It would be nice if we had a number of what we're spending on 444 tons of concrete. So I think we might make timber our first specialised industry. Build a log yard and a forestry area for that, I think. Maybe this side of the highways we begin to move away from civilization, perhaps, might be a good spot for that. But I'm going to have a couple more super nodes along this couplet system, so let's keep marking out entrances for these industrial units. And then we can delete that to force a super node. And this will also form some nice turnaround points for anyone perhaps wanting to exit the couplet system a little bit earlier. And there you can see what overstretching does here. So I'll try and avoid doing it all the time. Right, and then we'll have a few of these just spaced, let's say every third entrance we'll do one of these here. And then with these industrial lots themselves, I'm going to wrap them in some one-way road car parking, which will just frame each individual lot with its own kind of, staff customer car parking. And we'll also do maybe some smaller gravel lots. Then of course we can let whatever industry grows in here begin to dictate our detailing palettes. And I'm likely to also kind of plop some manual kind of silo storage just for the aesthetic in orbit of the rail yard, right? Also just sorted out some of the slopes on these intercity train lines as well. Although we can see we do have a cargo train taking a shortcut through the train yard. Because he's reversing. Maybe that's because I deleted the track. Maybe that's probably why he was doing that. Yeah, so that's kind of good. The intercity trains here aren't taking shortcuts through the rail yard. So it is hooked in. So that's perfect. I'm happy with that. That means I can detail all these tracks with train props, which we'll have a little look at now while we're talking about it. So we'll come into our Find It car filter and we can search for train. And I'm quite happy to have lots of oil silos here. And we'll come into a fence mode, and then we'll line up our major trains here. Already, easily the coolest thing about CS2 Find It, that all these vehicles are just here as props. Just awesome. Recently grabbed the mod for CS1 to do this as well. We'll have a few locomotives as well, but not rows of these, maybe at the end of the ore trains. Now the rail yard itself does have an upgrade, doesn't it, for the extra tracks, which I'm going to get now. It's only 8 grand a month, it's not massively expensive. But it's just going to give me more of this, right? Plus the actual visual of these trains parked up alongside my prop work, which is, again, just immensely helpful. Now, I mentioned earlier the train infrastructure in Tampa gets considerably elaborate in some places, so I certainly expect some more big American train yards to feature across this Florida-inspired mile grid. There's a lot to get stuck into here. So turning our attention to this side of the crossing, I would love to have some parked parallel tracks right by the road here. So we're going to align these. Also present here we see on Google Earth an absolute ton of truck containers. So we'll give a nice concrete surface for these. We'll go with this one. And I'll align this. I think coming out of the industrial area is going to be a nice orientation for it. I'm going to take this for as long as the rail yard is as well, right up to that next junction. And then we might change the size of this. I guess I'll just see how much room it gives me to play with. We'll come into our trucks. We'll grab a trailer of some description. And we're going to allow variation so we get some different colours here. And then spacing that they're very tightly packed. So should we go for that sort of angle there, I think. And then mirror them back the opposite way. So a big industrial truck trailer storage yard to go alongside our rail yard here as well. And we've also got some little stacks of containers down at the bottom of this yard as well. I think it's making time and space for an area like this in a city to really allow, you know, just that whole point of my playstyle, I think, is just spending more time with each areas. I know from a lot of the comments I've seen on this series, people struggle with, I think, slowing down sometimes, but I do as well. You know, sometimes when you open up a massive new tile space, it's like, oh my word, I've got so much space to fill here. Keep it slow. And then we'll allow an entrance point into this industrial yard here, something about there. And then we've got these really nice lots. I find these in the miscellaneous menu of the service buildings tab. There's a bunch of kind of upgrade things you can place here to various different extents. That is just going to store... It's a sub-building upgrade, isn't it? I'm actually not sure if a sub-building placed on its own will work away from its parent building. I'm actually not sure. But I do like the visual of oil tanks being around here, so I'm going to keep them in. And then this can just be a front office, a desk here, a couple of vans, and lots of prop fun you can have. And I guess I'll keep this whole thing going up to the next block, and then just use the fence as a bit of a divider to say, alright, this is the end of this particular facility. Whoever owns this, maybe this can be one of Onshore's distribution related sites, right? They already own so much of this over here, don't they? Conglomerate. Cool. So immediately just so much inspiration to be taken from Google Earth for opening up a new area, right? But let's bring in some roads here for the rest of the citizens, which is probably going to be made up of low density here. Residential demand is at the highest at the minute compared to everything else. So let's give them somewhere to build. In Google Earth, I'm also seeing a couple of tanks of water, for which one of the sub-buildings here, the settling tanks from the water service industry, I think will serve us quite nicely. I'll have 2 of these in here. And I might even, I think, trim off all the trees with better bulldozer too, I think. Yeah, we'll have them in there. Again, I'm not sure what they're used for, but there's definitely some circular water in the rail yard here in Tampa. So I can replicate that with some sub-buildings. Speaking of water, we're also at the need for water availability, so another perfect chance to include a water tower here. Which I think would be quite nice. Just off here, I want to put it on its own little dirt road though. And sort of blend it into the rail yard here if I can. Bring a little dirt road out there. We definitely don't want traffic lights on this junction here. Just remove those. Will node controller square you off? Yes, a little bit. We'll go with that. And then I'll have this here. And just position it where I want. Something like that. Get rid of the fencing on it. And let's not forget to keep on top of similar tricks we used for our first water tower here. Just a bit of dirt and dryness. Bring some nice trees in around here as well. I tend to just go for the tree brush. Set a couple of ages and then single clicks will give us a nice mixed forest through here. And again, a little bit of dirt and texture painter around the base of our really minimal small service buildings, like the water tower. Makes a lot of difference and just gives us another little point of interest alongside the rail yard, doesn't it? Big fan of doing this. That should be it for water for a little bit, I think. Yeah, it puts us back into the green, so we'll stop paying to import it. And we're actually even exporting a little bit as well. Sewage is still absolutely fine with the French water tower over on the other side of town. so we won't need that for a little bit. I think also around the junctions exiting the rail yard, I'd like to develop something more significant. So I think this will be a first good opportunity to place the city's first low rent homes here, which you can just filter for by searching for low rent and find it, and it'll bring up every low rent house essentially. And there's a few here. Just a bit of a development here off the highway, and nothing massive or significant. Just a bit of general low rent living in pretty undesirable parts of the city. That's going to be quite a home in the quite bleak, very cloudy day we're suffering in Kokomo today. That's mixed cloud. The clouds do look gorgeous, don't they? That's a really nice looking skybox there, isn't it? I have had some questions on the graphics settings recently, but honestly I'm still tweaking them myself. If you do want my current Lumina configurations, it's here. There is no LUT active. I'm not using one. I haven't really found one I like yet, to be honest. But in terms of the colour adjustment, this is what I'm currently running, but I pretty much change it every time I load in, because I just feel like I'm not quite there yet with the lighting. And of course the weather and the cloud coverage can affect your lighting so much as well. So yeah, we'll still continue to tweak as we go forward. But you can pause the video just there on the Lumina settings if you're wondering exactly what my settings are, but they are subject to change, so don't get too attached to them. And then here I think as well, just to keep the kind of grime vibe going, we'll pull in a gas station. Pull in one of the larger gas stations here to sit just on the corner. Just a little expansion of what's happening. By the way, I've also got my variation changer mod set to Shift and V. So if I do want variants, Shift and V will bring them back. So nice little hotkey for the asset variant changer mod there. That's the mod that stops your stuff from changing colour like this. Nice to add to the grimy vibes. I wonder, has this had any oil delivered yet? No, looks like it is purely aesthetic because there's no storage here, is there? We can bring in actual oil storage, but honestly I think until we start having major oil port developments, I might hold off on the functional silos until then, because I imagine a lot of our, again, Florida-inspired industrial waterfront stuff is going to lie around here because it's got direct access to the highway and the train line. So this is probably going to form our industrial coast on opposite the side of the river from Saratoga. But otherwise, I think we've got enough to flesh out with some fun here. I want to finish off the houses facing the rail. Plenty more trees and industrial detailing against this quieting industrial couplet system, which again is to go somewhere at some point. We've also got another national road down here, which is level crossing. Doesn't seem to be too busy out there. Imagine that'll be upgraded at some point. So these will all become very busy grid roads as the vast expanses go south, and the size of that rail yard is essentially the same width as most of Saratoga, isn't it? Set yourselves in for some Kokomo detailing, and then we'll be right back. just to briefly interrupt the detailing time-lapse here, we've come across several clusters of what I can only describe as ultra cow. Several different cows all fused together. I'm not sure why they're here or why they're doing that, but I think it adds to the build overall, doesn't it? If anything, it makes it more Florida. Right guys, let's check out the expanded Saratosa rail yard, shall we? So this whole area from the satellite view fits in fantastically and has given me much more direction, as I really want to envelop the rail yard now, so we'll definitely stay over this side of town over the next few episodes just so we can see it hugging the grid. Like, the whole thing is essentially as wide as the town as Saratosa over on the left side of the screen, isn't it? And I really love how industry is integrating into the city as well. Really enjoyable space. Either way, we'll start over here, where the damaged land and embanked highway continues as the power lines and roads both cut through the city. Some zoning here, with cul-de-sacs, and then also some terraformed stone mines, again, just to give the visual and the look of the pile of aggregate, right? As if maybe it's a construction site, or they're just simply storing gravel here. But a perfect accompaniment, I think, to the rail yard, which has been drawn out with all of its train props, lots of sand, painter, fence all around the perimeter of it. Lots of props here. Reformed how the rail yard flows slightly. I want it to be a bit straighter. It was all a bit curvy for me. So just ran through here. And also just noticed we have a stray pillar. Goodbye. Also with pedestrian overpass, you will notice here as well now. It doesn't get too much use at the minute anyway. But it does come down here, which connects into a fence, and which runs all the way along the edge here. Also included the two unique buildings we unlocked, the gravity separation unit and the concrete batch plant. Both popped whilst we had to place the stone mine. And these buildings are essentially designed to be together, aren't they? And just sit really nicely on the side of the rail yard. And then also finishing off with smaller industrial zonings here, before the couplet comes to an end and will develop as part of a wider road design that hooks in the road and all this rail that we have messing about near the city here. And likely a significant interchange upgrade to come over there at some point. So that'll eventually go somewhere, of course. Lots of detailing, pathways running down the middle, cutting off the different industrial estates, some of which have been expanded. There's bike parking in here too. And here we'll see some of the expanded ones, lots of prop work, trailers, cones, planks, generators, tanks, just endless amount of CS2 base game props, which honestly make the game absolutely incredible. That building has, however, added that in, which it wasn't there earlier. I'll just take that away. But yeah, same thing again over here. And all of this looks super nice just sat against the rail line here, doesn't it? Which I've tried to sort out the gradients. Train police should be happy with us today. And again, just the wonder of CS2's network tools. Being able to create these lines that just look awesome. Also, big note as well for the shifted angle of the rail yard against the grid. How much of a difference does that make to the build? I think we found the perfect angle there, didn't we? And then down here, just more of the same. Also built a dedicated truck depot here. And with those Joe's industrial units also repeating again, super versatile assets for generic distribution, which is such a common occurrence in the modern city, isn't it? You'll also notice bike lanes prepped to flow through here as well, but of course they don't really lead anywhere yet, so one day we'll hopefully have quite a busy little cycling junction here, which should be a lot of fun. Over this side, the residential continues to border up against. There's more props tucked in the corner. Again, the same with the water tower down here as well. The big trailer depot thing here that we took inspiration from in Tampa also has expanded detail with more silos, props, vehicles in the yard. Again, a really perfect accompaniment, I think, to the rail yard building itself, isn't it? Again, just the visual of those trains by the arterial. How cool is that look? Again, mentioned it a couple of episodes ago, but the scale of CS2 makes things seem significantly more impressive, doesn't it? And I adore this view here, maybe my favourite view in the city so far. And the buses have also had their route changed as well. They were previously cutting up the arterial back to the highway interchange, but now you can see that they are just extending into this new road frame to pick up people, which of course takes them all the way back into central Saratosa, which is about as far as I'm going to take the bus here, I think. For further distances beyond this, we'll begin to consider metro, train and trams to cover significant Margaret distances with a pretty heavily integrated metro system, so we should probably start that sooner rather than later to make sure we actually plan for it in the network. So maybe expect Metro to join train infrastructure in the not too distant future. We have lots of car parking, again, trying to address the comments that you guys are leaving me, to just have more car parking for the facility, which does get plenty of use. So happy with that. This brings us back to that pit over there. Again, the low rent housing sits in quite nicely in a much less desirable part of town. You can, get cheaper rent, but have to live in the orbit of, the dirt and grime of the industry that keeps the world churning, essentially. So just, again, this is all base game assets. There's nothing custom here, which is kind of wild, isn't it? The mods are really allowing me, I think, to create some of the more realistic city spaces I've ever had. I guess the fun time of putting together. My gas station sits in with an office on the corner. Before our park area sits in here. Again, just deleting fences, dragging out surfaces, props, pools, merry-go-rounds, which unfortunately aren't animated. I really hope animations aren't far away. I'd love to see people actually sat here and using them, but from the land value perspective, the Sims living here are happy that they're there at least. They just don't actually ever use them, which is fine. Hello, traffic. This is brand new. First time I've noticed this. So this is quite interesting, isn't it? And people trying to come down here. So again, it's further highlighting the need, isn't it, for ways back and two across. We could connect in there. I did leave that as a cul-de-sac connection for the pathway to make through, but and if it's further justifications, because there's a lot of industrial traffic here. There's a lot of trucks. Oh, it's actually the bus, isn't it? Yeah, it's the bus doing that. Okay, well, if I reclaim one of those lanes, then let's do that so the bus gets out of the way. At least then it won't block the rest of the traffic trying to come down. Just double check here as this next bus comes in. Yeah, there you go. Okay. And a little bit of centre bus usage. There's 23 people currently riding it. And we're also seeing bikes beginning to appear in the city as well. That was something to keep our eye on then in terms of the other traffic jams in the city. Again, they ebb and flow. Over here earlier it was completely clear, but we've definitely got another big rush of people down here coming down this road, haven't we? And it's coming out of early morning. So I assume the traffic fluctuations, because again, you guys in the comments have said you've also experienced the same, is just tied to the rush hour mechanic, is generally how I'm interpreting it at the minute. So yeah, how are we also doing for taxis as well? And of course we placed that building last episode. Yeah, they're not far off actually wanting another upgrade again. Already 43 vehicles out. And then in terms of the buses, with that bus line extension, yeah, another 9 vehicles yet before we need these bus upgrades on the back. So that'll be fine. We'll keep on top of that. And then over by the police firing range, you guys flagged up a couple of episodes ago that we do need some mounded earth behind the range, which we have now done. And I've also added an extra layer of thick metal fencing on the edge of the range at least. So it does become somewhat safe, because if it wasn't there and they miss, then they will be firing into the Devereux family's home, which will be terrible. Just Preston living on his own. He's idling. Where is he? Oh, he's at home as well. God forbid. So Preston has been saved via the city's further investments in infrastructure. And then back over here, that pedestrian path comes down, which does get occasional person crossing. There you go, there's a party 3. Maybe the buses actually will start to feed that a little bit better. I will also send buses this side of the rail, but once I have more of an expanded road infrastructure to plan them into. Because again, this is likely to form up the next town over. I have kind of dragged the marking of Saratoga down today. In fact, we'll probably do it up here as well. Yeah, I'm actually going to take it all the way up to the river bend, and this entire section here will just be various districts of Saratoga. Which pretty much ties up our industrial service build today. An enormous shout out to the YouTube members and patrons that bankroll these videos. If you're interested in that, links are down in the video description. And I think this is probably my favourite service industry we've ever done. Adding in the rail yard here with mining, generic services and a couple of factories, with a ton of inspired prop detailing available from Google Earth, as always for these inspired/recreation projects. I'm having a ton of fun playing Kokomo. Thank you for all your support on the series. Either way, hang around for the cinematics, and thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.